So Wicked Part 1 is now out in theaters and at home, which means I can finally talk about it. I love this movie. It's truly a magical experience that has so many little moments to enjoy. Some of my favorites being this little janky spin Ariana does on the chandelier during Popular, or Bach and Nessa Rose dancing during the Ozdust Ball, instead of Nessa being wheeled around like a prop. And of course, how could I not mention those One Short Day cameos? If you want to hear my full thoughts on the entire movie, my friends and I did a full review over on Phil with 1L's channel. With all that being said, I wanted to take a moment here to talk about one specific scene. Obviously from the video title and thumbnail, you already know that it's Defying Gravity. This is the big number that everyone knows from the 20-year-old Broadway show. So imagine my surprise when I saw people posting reaction videos and TikToks of themselves crying in the theater when the movie was released. I didn't think I would have a reaction like that, seeing as I've seen the stage play and know how both the musical number and the entire story plays out. This isn't a new story. However, I actually did find myself moved by the movie's version of Defying Gravity. While it follows the same beats as the stage show, it's presented in a totally new format thanks to the magic of film. That being said, there are also many people who criticize this new version of Defying Gravity. One of the largest criticisms is that it plays out much slower than the stage show. However, I would argue that that's for good. Each new element plays into the cinematic ending of the movie. This is, after all, an adaptation, not a direct performance of the stage show. So let's explore the differences between the two and how the new changes make the scene stand out and maybe even surpass the original show performance. So like I said, in the musical, everyone knows what Defying Gravity is if you know what Wicked is. Even if you don't know what Wicked is, you probably know what Defying Gravity is. My first exposure to it was back when Frozen came out in 2013 and everyone was talking about Idina Menzel and how she played Elphaba. And I was like, oh, the Let It Go lady has this other very popular song. And so Defying Gravity is the end of Act 1. It's the most well-known song from the show. And I fully admit, it's an incredibly difficult song to pull off. But the whole point of the song is about Elphaba standing up to oppression and, throwing out societal expectations, while also unfortunately losing her friend in the process. And so the way this is framed is Elphaba realizes that the wizard is a fraud when he can't read the Grimoire and uses her, and after which she then grabs the Grimoire and runs off, with Glinda following after her. And this is where, as I've talked about in the past when talking about Wicked, the sets are very limited. Wicked often relies on lighting or a single prop to set the scene. So unfortunately for Defying Gravity, we are just in a very dimly lit space with Elphaba and Glinda. I know it's meant to be like we're at the top of the tower or we're in some kind of storage room, but it doesn't provide the most exciting scenery. Especially when the fact that Elphaba and Glinda aren't moving in this scene much. They're kind of just pacing back and forth in this dimly lit area. While the song is amazing, the visuals are nothing to write home about. And during the song, Glinda gives Elphaba her iconic broom and cape. However, they're kind of played off as jokes. The broom floats in either on a wire or by a stage member holding it, depending on the production you see. And the cape given by Glinda always completes her Wicked Witch look that always gets a laugh from the audience. And then finally at the end of the song, when the guards storm the room, Elphaba flies. And it is an incredibly oppressive effect, especially when you think about that this actor is still singing while being lifted by the crane behind them. That being said, they aren't moving, instead the cape billows to give that impression of movement. But again, it's not the most exciting visual besides the impressive lift as she sings. I have always loved Defying Gravity, but it's not the most visually exciting portion of the show. It's a very dark scene with very little going on in the background or the surrounding elements. And that's why for me, I thought the movie version worked much better. And you see, the movie version had a lot more pressure, I would say, on it. You see, like I said, in the stage show, it closes out the show for Act 1, and then you take a little 15-minute intermission and you come back and resume the play. However, in this instance, they've split the show into 2 movies, which makes Defying Gravity the definitive end of Part 1. And if the ending is bad in your movie, that's all people are going to talk about. And the actors and crew members had incredible pressure to pull this off, as John M. Chu shared that this was filmed after the strikes of 2023. So after 4 months on strike, the crew and cast all had to come together, especially Cynthia Erivo, and perform the biggest musical number in both movies, frankly. If this doesn't work, the whole movie falls apart. Thankfully, I think they stuck the landing. So the setup plays out essentially the same in the movie. Elphaba realizes the wizard is a fraud and steals the grimoire, and then Glinda follows after her, hoping to bring her back to the wizard. Meanwhile, Morrible turns the flying monkeys against Elphaba, and this is done in a horrific scene where we just see feathers everywhere. Again, it's really effective to show how evil the wizard and Morrible are. And Elphaba and Glinda have a little escape attempt via the balloon that belongs to the wizard. And I heard a lot of people complain that, oh, this just felt like they added an action scene to add an action scene. And frankly, yeah, that's why it is there. But after their attempt to escape in the balloon fails, we then get into Defying Gravity. And immediately we start with Ariana Grande is killing it, as always, when she hits that angry "I hope you're happy." And it's so cool to see both of these actresses, the anger and disgust on their face, but also the hurt as they throw these barbs back and forth at each other. However, they're interrupted when Morrible makes her Wicked Witch speech. And she does this in the stage show. This isn't anything new. However, what really impacts this is the fact that you can cut to Elphaba's reaction and get a close-up because it's a movie. In a stage show, seating varies, in which you might not be able to see the details on an actor's face. However, here in a movie, we can push in with the camera and we see Elphaba break, as the first person who ever showed her kindness has now turned the entire country against her. And then, of course, we get the iconic "Don't be afraid," and it's the wizard who should be afraid of me. And I thought it was interesting that Elphaba discovers proof that the wizard is a sham during this scene. She discovers more of his carny supplies while she's singing. I'll be curious to see if any of this comes up in part 2. And so, of course, with nothing left to do, Elphaba begins to sing Defying Gravity, and while she's doing so, she's ascending the tower. Which, like I said, in the stage show, they're just standing in place or walking back and forth. But here, again, in the visual medium of film with the magic of editing, we can have Elphaba ascend the tower. It adds movement and action to the scene, making it much more interesting than just watching someone stand there. After which, when faced with nowhere left to go but to fly out the window, Elphaba attempts the levitation spell, and during which, of course, we know that the levitation spell does not work on herself, but instead the broom. And like I said, it's a bit of a joke in the stage show. Somebody hands it to Glinda off screen, or it kind of floats on a string. But here, the broom float is literally made for cinematic montages, as my friend Phil with 1L pointed out. The camera gets real close, and it has that great shot where she grabs the broom and looks down the length of the broom. Like I said, she's just being handed these items in the stage show, so it's cool to see her embrace her destiny and take the broom herself. And then, of course, we get to the most heartbreaking moment of the song, when Elphaba offers Glinda to come with her. And I do believe there was a split second where Glinda actually considers it. However, she's someone who has benefited from the system her whole life. And so she believes she can do better within the system, fix it from inside. And if you doubt that, they literally put it in the Little Golden Book. I know who the Little Golden Book is part of my evidence. And I really like this because, again, they're singing together in unison. However, they have incredibly different views on how they can be unlimited. Elphaba is saying how if the two of them were to stand up and take on the wizard, they would be unlimited because nothing can stop them. Meanwhile, in Glinda's head, she's thinking of how underneath the wizard, being the wizard's second-hand woman, both of them could be unlimited. Elphaba offering Glinda to come with her is also made so much more heartbreaking with the home release where we've seen the deleted scenes. As friend of the channel Morgan M. Steele points out, in one deleted scene, Glinda addresses that Elphaba could have come to her during the lion cub moment. Glinda tells her, "You could have picked me." During this scene, Elphaba literally promises Glinda, "I won't leave you behind again." And what is happening in this moment? But Elphaba is trying to pick you. However, Elphaba can't stand with the systematic oppression of Oz. And so again, it's a deleted scene, so it's kind of hard to bring it up, but it would have just given another layer to Defying Gravity. And the cape, Glinda wrapping the cape around Elphaba is a tearful moment instead of a laugh. And of course, while it's a tearful moment, Elphaba does give Glinda a nice little wink, which is something, again, you can only do in the movie, as out on the stage, people won't be able to see that wink depending on where they're sitting. And once again, the magic of cinema, that shot of Elphaba's cape billowing is made for cinema. You could do that on a stage show, but it just wouldn't have the same effect. And so just like the show, the guards barge in, and Elphaba, where in the stage show she ascends, she flies up. In this, she stands up for her friend, saying, "I'm the one you want, it's me," and she takes a leap of faith out the window. And you would think, oh, this is where she takes off flying. But no, instead in this version, she falls. And during her fall, she sees her younger self. And that's because before she can even take off and fly, she has to embrace who she is now. She has to be that person her younger self always was looking for in the wizard. And so in that moment, the child disappears when she takes the broom, fully embracing her new power, once again saying, "It's me." And so she ascends the tower again, making note of the "so if you care to find me, look to the western sky," of course taking her stance. And during this scene, as a nice reference to the ending of the musical, her cape is getting longer with each sequence, which is a nice touch. And like I said, in the musical, Elphaba flies, but she's stuck in one spot on a crane. Here we have the magic of editing and CGI and movie magic to make her do whatever we want. And so why wouldn't we have her fly? So the monkeys are released and are chasing Elphaba around the Emerald Palace in the sky. And again, this is something you could never do on stage, but it's a great way to showcase her flying ability. And it's something that no one else in all of Oz could do. And during all this flying, Elphaba has the biggest smile on her face. As the song says, she's no longer held down by anyone. And I can imagine for her, this is a great feeling. And I love the way she throws the monkeys back at them, literally using the weapon that they forced her to create against them. And so this is the point in the song where she would hit that and nobody in all of Oz. But instead, here in the movie, they've added an original section in which Elphaba soars off into the clouds, singing, "I am unlimited." And this is a really nice moment because, again, it just shows that Elphaba has been carrying this burden her whole life of everybody telling her what she is. And in this moment, she's truly weightless. Nobody can tell her what she is. This original moment of the song also gives us an opportunity to show the supporting characters' reactions to Elphaba's supposed fall to the dark side, something not shown in the show at all. And it truly does show that they all suck, and how easily they all abandon her because in this world everyone's wicked. And so I feel like this really does help with the themes and ideas, because frankly the stage show is all about how everyone is good and everyone has wickedness in them. And so to see all of her friends and family instantly abandon her and assume the worst is heartbreaking. And in this moment, Madame Morrible also takes the opportunity she sees in front of her to pull Glinda in at her weakest moment. And after that is when Elphaba comes in with her angry and breathy, and nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was. And again, this is something that is not in the stage show, but we actually get Madame Morrible and the wizard's reactions to this. Which, again, I guess you could say makes them feel less threatening as villains, because you see the wizard cowering from Elphaba. But at the same time, it's a great display of just how strong she is, and the reason why they have to turn all of Oz against her if they want to stand a chance. And while Elphaba sings that nobody's going to bring her down, Glinda hits one final "I hope you're happy" that breaks your heart. I think Ariana really sells that this is a defeated Glinda who's watching her friend disappear. And in that moment, it is a one last "I hope you're happy," in that while it's breaking her heart, she hopes that Elphaba's okay at the end of all this. And the ensemble here has actually been changed to be much more aggressive, which I think fits with this, frankly, much more aggressive version of the wizard and Morrible. Instead of saying, "Look at her, she's wicked, get her," they say, "Kill her." I thought this change was interesting because the guards are actually ordered to capture Elphaba alive in the stage show because she's the only person who can read the Grimoire. However, here you could say it's in a moment of fear for the ensemble. They are witnessing this great power, and to their belief, she's the bad guy. And finally, of course, you have to end Defying Gravity with the battle cry. This is Elphaba's big "ah" that I can't perform at all. And so before she does her battle cry, the movie actually gets silent. You hear the wind literally like swoop in, and all of the sound cuts out, and the power goes out in the Emerald City, really showcasing Elphaba's power. Which you could also say is a fun, cheeky reference to the fact that in the stage show, the lights cut out because it's the end of Act 1. And I thought the movie added something interesting in the battle cry, in that it's now part of a prophecy. You see, during one short day, Elphaba and Glinda learn about the prophecy of the Grimoire, in which we're told, "In Oz's darkest hour, though we cannot say when, there will come one with the power to read the Grimoire again. And Oz, which has been sad and blah, once more will sing a joyous..." And I thought this was a cool change, because I know in the musical you could say this is Elphaba embracing her fight against the wizard, this is her battle cry. But I like the prophecy idea in the movie because this is Elphaba embracing that she is going to be the one that, as the prophecy says, is going to bring joy back to the land of Oz, which is currently sad and blah. This is all totally original stuff that I'll be curious to see where it goes in part 2. And of course, the big shot of Elphaba hitting that note and her cape billowing is the final shot of Act 1 of the musical. And so with that, Elphaba leaves the Emerald City with her huge billowing cape, while Glinda is taken by Morrible. And in Glinda's face, again, something you really wouldn't see in a musical, you can see she's so sad, and it almost seems like she doesn't want to go with Morrible, but it's too late. She's made her decision as Elphaba sonic booms off into a "to be continued." And so yeah, that was the movie's version of Defying Gravity. Clearly, as you can see by the length of this video, a lot longer and a lot more to talk about than the stage show version. Obviously, all of the same themes and musical beats are there, but they're presented in a new format, in a new flow, a new style. I personally really liked it and found myself moved, like I said. While the musical version will always exist, and I'm sure I'll come back to it at some point, this new version of Defying Gravity is fascinating to me. And I think without this musical set piece, the movie wouldn't stand out as much as it does. Like I said before, while the entire movie is great, it all falls apart if Defying Gravity sucks. Thankfully, they were able to show us what they had, defy gravity, and maybe even change it for good. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings about Defying Gravity. Let me know what you thought of Defying Gravity in the movie, or the movie itself, in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.